Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk About Conflict, where we talk about, you guessed it, conflict. I am so excited that today I get to bring you somebody other than Lynn Nash. Woo! I am your host, Lynn Nash, but today my friend Caelie Dunn is joining us. She is a licensed professional counselor who works with adults to help them focus on their goals, help them get it together. And sometimes she just helps her clients get out of their own way. Everybody feeling that word? Yeah, me too. She uses existential, holistic, and somatic approaches to help people connect mind, body, and soul within themselves. Caelie's worked with college students, athletes, professionals, parents, leaders, individuals on probation or otherwise impacted by the justice system, couples, persons with addictions, and people who are trying to figure out how to, adult. So people who are over 18, people. She loves her family and is a complete nut job if any dog is in her vicinity. I have seen this with my own two eyes, which is why I can't not say it. She is a mega longhorn. She's got a couple degrees from there. That would be the University of Texas for anybody keeping score, for the double Aggie who's talking right now. But I love her truly. I do. So Caelie, thanks for being here.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, that's appropriate. Yes. So one of the things that I've been very struggling with from the beginning about let's talk about conflict and let's talk about conflict skills is to make sure I am not in any way trying to be you, right? I am not a licensed professional counselor. I do not have degrees in that area, and I don't want to pretend like I do. So thank you for coming on. How am I doing so far?
Doing great. Are we talking emotionally or podcast?
Oh, well, we can't talk about
great across the board.
We're going to have to.
Yes.
Just going to have to focus on the podcast today.
Then you're doing great. You're doing perfect.
Okay. Good. As far as the mental health area, I want to make sure we're keeping that straight.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to talk about where the divide is between skills for working through conflict, which is what I have an expertise in, and when someone should really seek out advice from a professional like you. And so I know that this is an area you think about because there's no doubt in my mind, not that you've said this to me, but there's no doubt in my mind you've had clients show up and you thought, I wish I'd seen you a year ago. I wish I could have helped you before you're all the way here. So in preparing for today's talk, because believe it or not, there's actual preparation. In preparing for us getting together today, you had 3 places where you would say, hey, if you're asking these kind of questions, this is the time to seek out a professional. What do those areas look like?
Yeah. So generally, I would say for anything that you're struggling with, these are 3 good questions to keep in mind. So the first is this issue, is this challenge that I'm dealing with, is it context specific? So what I mean there is this something that only happens when I'm at work, or only happens when my boss walks into the room, or only happens with this partner that I'm with? Or is this something that happens everywhere? This happens at work, social, home, everything. So that's the first one, is this context specific? The second is, how long has this been happening? Is this something that you've struggled with your whole life? My whole life I've been dealing with this. Or is it, hey, I just noticed that, at this new job, this has started coming up, or really with this partner, this has come up, or since this event in my life, this is coming up. So context specific, how long has it been going on? And how much is this impacting your life and your quality of life specifically, right? So if you are somebody who gets really bad stage fright and you have not been on a stage since you were in high school, do you really need to seek out professional help? Probably not. If you're someone who has stage fright and you are expected to give big presentations for work every week, that probably is going to impact you a little bit more. So understanding those three things or asking those questions and kind of reflecting on those questions, I think can be really helpful for a number of reasons. So let's take the context specific part. If I'm really just struggling at this job or with this boss, maybe there's a mentor, maybe someone who looks like me or followed a path that I really respect, that they can mentor me through this particular challenge. And I'm good to know, good go. And especially, I know a lot of you're in the legal field, a lot of people who are listening to you are in the legal field. Um, I'm not, and most therapists are not. So someone in the legal field probably has a may be able to help guide you through a specific challenge. But if it's overarching your whole life,
Yeah. When we're talking about specific, right? I love that you use that word context specific. Something it's just about right here, right now. It's not everything. Um, I think that might be a place where skills are applicable versus why don't you go see somebody because this is probably really affecting your quality of life. Is
yeah.
that fair?
Yes, that's really well put, because that's what a mentor would do, is say, "Hey, in this area, here's some skills to help you improve this." Versus, "Oh, this is affecting everything."
Yeah.
Um, and let's talk about where that's coming from. Like we need to dig a little bit and get into the root. Maybe there's not a root, but maybe there's several roots. And
Yeah.
if it's affecting multiple areas, that's usually an indication that something is going a little deeper.
Okay. And I say that not to say that you shouldn't seek out help from a counselor. I don't mean that at all. Because when somebody says, I think this would just be an assist, get an assist. I'm in no, I mean, obviously I have friends in this world. I am never gonna say don't seek out help if you think that's the right answer for you. But I wanted to go back to your three questions and just say that context specific is a differentiator when you're looking at the whole pattern. Is that fair? Is that an
Yes,
accurate way to describe it? Guess I don't want to
absolutely.
use the word fair. Fair only happens in October in Texas. Okay. So we don't fair is subjective. I don't know. So subjectively, Caelie, would you say? Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Good. Totally fair. Okay. So go you have a wonderful quote that you gave me that I want you to give the audience because it's fabulous.
Yeah. So one of the things, especially in talking about context specific, is, if you generally have good relationships and everything's going well, and then you are with one person and it's not going well, or one environment, and all of a sudden something goes sideways, that's something to notice. Like, is the environment a bad fit, or are you lacking skills? So one of the quotes that I really like, we might have to bleep something out, but is, and this is attributed to William Gibson, but it's, before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounded by assholes.
Yeah.
Right? If you are in a bad environment, feeling bad is the correct response. It's not lack of skills, it's not dysfunction. That is an accurate barometer of where you are. So keeping that in mind, that, oh, well, maybe I'm nervous because my boss is really critical and I almost said unfair. Is not
Equitable.
equitable, and they're critical, and how they're making decisions about who gets promoted and such. Well, it's reasonable to feel some anxiety in that situation. So yeah, keeping that in mind, being aware of your environment, and context specific helps with that. If it's only happening at work, maybe it's something specific to work, like a jerk boss or terrible coworker.
Yeah. I have been, we'll just use this word too, is that I have been very famously quoted as saying, my boss is a real bitch, but at least I know her because I am my boss. Yeah, I know her and I know what she can be like. I don't be offended by that out there, folks. Okay. Just gotta know who you rolling with, right?
Amen.
But you also, that quote uses the word diagnose. So I know I have heard a lot of times where, Dr. Google all of a sudden has solved that
Mhm.
problem, and you said an even scarier source. What does that
Yeah,
look
Dr. TikTok comes up a lot in my sessions. Here's my general rule. Here's what I tell clients who come in is fine. Google and TikTok are actually, they can be really helpful in helping you find hacks or looking for things that might help you. What they are not good at is diagnosing. And there's a few layers to this. The first is I've seen so many just random stuff that is just not backed by research or like it's anybody can put anything on the internet.
Yep.
The second is there's actually a whole debate in our field about the benefit of pathologizing or diagnosing conditions. So like I said, I could look at somebody and say, "Well, you meet the criteria for major depression." Okay, well, are you surrounded by assholes? Did someone that you love just die? Are you in the middle of a pandemic? Right?
Yeah.
You having those symptoms does not mean that you are experiencing a dysfunction. If your stomach really, really hurts and you're feeling dizzy, and we decide, oh, right, you haven't eaten in 24 hours. Is that your body malfunctioning? No, that is your body doing its job to say, hey, I require sustenance. So I think that's an important context, an important part of seeing a professional, or in this case, a therapist, is diagnosing is really, there's a lot of complexity and subtlety to it. And it's not always necessary. Sometimes we are skill building
Right.
because you are in a context or an environment where we can just build skills and not pathologize or say that you are broken or um,
Right.
malfunctioning in some
I
way.
love the word broken. I think there's nobody on the planet who hasn't felt broken at some point. But there's permanently broken that needs to go to the shop. Your car can't make it, and there's that cold morning that your car just ain't starting. I mean, in trying to learn along the way, when am I having a cold start morning or when it's time to go get a tune up, right? That self-awareness, I think is,
Yes.
I don't want to use your terms, but I think it's self-awareness.
Yes.
And tell me,
100%.
what is the name of the book? What is the name of the book that's the classic book that everybody, and I'm putting you on the spot, that
Oh, the
they, yeah,
diagnostic.
the
Yes. So
diagnostic book. Yeah.
yes. So the DSM-5 is the DSM-5 TR is the most recent one. Um, so I obviously have it because I use it, but I don't use it that often.
Yeah.
Most of the time with my, and this is very much my approach, you are
Yes.
going to find therapists who have a different approach, certainly
Yes.
psychiatrists with insurance billing, we've got to diagnose. But there's a whole school of therapists that I belong to that generally don't see the point in pathologizing when we do not need to.
Right. I find that really refreshing, which is why I asked you, I put you on the spot. We didn't talk about that book in advance. But everybody knows that book in this
The
world.
Bible. I got it. I can do the DSM-5 diagnostic statistical manual. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's real. And there is nobody, and frankly, there are a lot of lawyers in certain practice areas that would want to use that book. And I'm like, try for use that book. That's not our, let's all stay in our lane and let's call people like Caelie to say, hey, how about you have a visit? Let's let them be the guide for us, lawyers. That's for you.
And I will say, like on that point, I'm actually really glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
one of a line in almost every single area of the book, so every single diagnosis, there's a line that says, "Here's all the symptoms. Here's what how we would what you need to see in order to categorize it as this." But there's always a line that says, "Unless better explained by something else, by another diagnosis, by a substance you're taking, by a very are you experiencing major depression if your partner just died? No, those are separate. That's a very context specific situation. That's called grief. That's it is better explained by
Better
something else.
explain with the word
Grief.
grief. Yes.
Yeah. Am I experiencing hallucinations and delusions of grandeur? Well, have I not eaten for 3 days? Have I taken some substances recently? That might be a better fit than, say, schizophrenia, right? So exactly what you're saying. Is this a lack of skills? Are there some environmental factors here? Am I depressed because am I anxious because every time I get in the car, I'm now worried about getting pulled over and an act of violence happening against me because that's what I'm seeing every time I turn on the news? Well, that anxiety again fits the situation. It's not a malfunction. So yeah, keeping that in mind that we don't have to pathologize, we can skill build and look for other explanations other than you're broken and you have this disease.
Yeah. I really am glad you keep using the word broken because I don't think most people are in general. I think people are a little broke down, but not broken, right? And I keep going back to the car analogy, so forgive me in advance. But we all know when the car is done, right? The car has you have now done all you can, and you're gonna have to take and get another car because it's truly broken and it is not you just have reached that place. But broke down, we all get a little broke down, a little run down, a little whatever. We were laughing before we started recording about how insane my day has already been. Just like it's a little class, but and it's all it's anxiety driven for me to get up and make sure everything is done so that I feel a little more in control. I'm not going to do it every day. I'm
Right.
going to own it for now. But if I do all of this, then I can have a breath later, right? Making the trade-offs with yourself. Which goes back to um the stuff we're going to talk about next, right? So Caelie did a beautiful job of pulling out. Yes, all this is Caelie. Do not give Lynn credit. Caelie did a beautiful job of pulling out kind of three areas to focus on when we're talking about the difference between really needing to go be with a professional, which again, if you want to be with a professional, get on it. Nobody's telling you not to. But this show and this podcast is meant to be about skills for your own edification. That's a big 10-cent word. About learning how to manage yourself when you're in a conflict. And there's just no way around it. Life is going to give you conflict. And so, how do you want to manage yourself when it happens? That's what I focus on. And Caelie does that plus a whole lot more. So let me guess. She's nodding yes, of course.
Yes.
So
right, this is audio.
It's audio. It's audio. Come on, baby. Come on. Nod your head. All right. So let's walk through this a little bit. And I'm gonna hand the reins back to you and let you take off with this because I wanna get the good stuff and then I may jump in here and there.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things that I see a lot with, and you've used this term, I think, on this podcast already, is the idea of conflict avoidance. Avoidance is something that we all do, in lots of different spaces.
Why? Why do we do that?
Because
Do you know
icky,
why?
ew, because we don't want to do something. And like many different things, it is a tool. It is a tool to keep in your toolbox. It is not a long-term solution.
Ooh, say that again. Ooh.
Avoidance.
Ooh.
Avoidance is one tool in your toolbox. It cannot be the only one, and it is not a long-term solution.
Yeah.
So thinking about the car analogy, let's go back to that. If I just avoided dealing with my car, maybe one day, like I just need to get to work today and I cannot deal with this. That may help you get through that day. But that's not going to work for a month, for 2 months, for a year, right? The other thing that I've noticed generally happening with avoidance, and not just me, the profession.
There it
What
is.
the thing that we notice happens with avoidance is when you avoid a particular feeling, when you have a feeling and you avoid something, it tends to reinforce that feeling. Let me use an example because that was very poorly said.
No, it wasn't poorly said, but break it down. You got
Yeah,
it.
let me break it down. So if I let's go with conflict. If I need to talk with somebody and I feel really uncomfortable with it, someone hurt my feelings, and now I don't know if I can trust them, and I know I really should talk to them, but I avoid it. It's going to reinforce that feeling of distrust, of fear, and anxiety about talking to the person. I never resolve it. I don't go through the feeling. I don't stick with the feeling. I just move away from it. So, like a wound, I tend to use wound
Yeah.
analogies. We've talked
Yeah.
about this before, right? If I put a band aid over a boo boo, that sometimes works. But if it's a big boo boo, or if it keeps getting re injured, there's dirt, there's other things in it, it's not going to heal. And in fact, it will likely get worse. It will get infected, and then we've got a real problem. So, going to the problem is very uncomfortable. We need to build tolerance for that discomfort
Yes.
and build skills. And what happens on the other end is we tend to decrease anxiety, distrust, because either we learn that we can trust the person because we've confronted them,
Right.
or we put up a better boundary. But I'm not left in this limbo of not knowing.
Yeah. Say that limbo thing again. Oh,
So if I avoid someone, I'm stuck in the limbo of not knowing. When I confront them, I now know, I've now given myself direction. Either I can trust this person, and in fact, because of this conflict, my trust has grown, or I realize that I need to put up better boundaries, or some third option that I can't think of right now.
no, you're fine. No, because this is the thing you have heard me say, and the podcast has heard me say nonstop is don't be a conflict avoider. Don't be a conflict avoider. Now, I do think it's important for you and I to have this conversation about not being a conflict avoider does not mean you need to go in and make everybody a nail and be a hammer,
Right.
right? Right. So the skill is not to explode the first time you feel that. The skill says, I'm going to acknowledge that I feel like this. I'm going to step back and think through what maybe triggered this in them, what triggered this in me. And then, to your point, is it really worth? Is it going to make a difference to me to make this conflict to go in and hit this head on, or do I need to let it go because I made it bigger deal? Right? That's that internal thing, the internal conversation. Or is this going to bother me because this is my job? These or my coworkers or my partner or God, even the person next to me at the gym I see 3 times a week, right? I mean, just somebody, it's a constant in your life. And this is just gonna irritate me until I might blow up or I have retreated and I have lost something important in my life. So the avoidance stage is I almost think when you have that sense of avoidance, it's like opportunity. If you take it as opportunity.
Yes.
If you have the ability to step back and do that self-analysis sort of thing I was just talking about, and then assess, right? And then determine. So then the skills come in of don't go screaming, don't go hollering, don't turn the world into nails and hammer everybody because it doesn't. I mean, I just said in the mediation this week, well, an eye for an eye for an eye means everybody's blind, and I'm not real interested in living like that. I'm
Yeah.
just but that's what that kind of reactionary stuff gets us into, right? And with this, it's that moment of saying, okay, I recognize my instinct is to avoid that. And you just said, how normal is that?
Right.
But once I recognize that, here's the next step that has to be done instead of just acting like it no longer exists.
Right. Well, and I like that you use the word opportunity because I think avoidance denies us and others two really big opportunities. The first we've already alluded to, which is it denies you the ability to build skills. You don't get good at really anything in life without doing it a few times and likely messing it up a few times.
Yeah. And when do you learn the most?
When you mess up, when
Yeah.
your face is on, on the floor and you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm going to remember that."
Like that was gonna stick.
Yeah. So we're missing the opportunity to build tools. And I use the word tools a lot because I do visually see a toolbox, right? You want a hammer in your toolbox.
Yeah.
There are times where you absolutely are going to use a toolbox, but like you said, we're going to be dealing with people where we do not want to hammer them. Um, that may be, I was about to make sometimes we want to screw them, but then that was really inappropriate.
But sometimes
That's
we
why
do. We know.
that was a
We know.
really long pause.
Nope, 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 nope. We all do. We all, yes, yes. I do. I mean, yeah, Caelie and I got a lot in common. So sometimes we're like, oh, it's coming. Here it
I know.
comes.
These jokes can happen in therapy too. Therapy does not have to be serious. It can be fun and funny as well. So we want to have multiple tools in our tool belt. Another way that I think about this is I played basketball and was a basketball coach. If all I ever do is shoot from the 3-point line, I am not hard to guard. If all I ever do is drive in the lane, I am not hard to guard. But if I can pass down low, if I can pass to a shooter on the outside, if I can shoot on the outside, if I can drive, now I am much harder to guard because I have so many. If I can beat you off the dribble and shoot and pass, you have to guard 3 different things.
Right.
So same thing. The other thing to consider is who you are using that tool with or against, who you are playing against. So on the other end of, so I said initially there were 2 things. So back to that. The other is you're denying the opportunity for the person across from you to show up as well.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
God, yeah.
So if I'm having a difficult, if I'm having a challenge with a partner and I do not confront them about it, I deny them the opportunity to explain themselves, to try again, right? To learn from that so they do not continue harming me. That does assume that you can assess the person across from you.
That's
right?
fair. That's super fair. Fair.
There's only something that happens in October.
I know. That is a really good statement. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, I would love to. There's a great definition of boundaries by Prentice Hemphill, and it's the distance. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and myself simultaneously.
Oh,
probably got it. It's
there
so
we go.
good, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about if there is somebody that I'm never going to see again, or they are not respectful, a hammer, great, get it out. You use that hammer. If there's somebody that I care about and I trust and I want to maintain a relationship with, then I can feel more comfortable being vulnerable and saying, hey, this really hurt my feelings. You may want to, we're getting a little bit into skill building here, but you may want to say things like, I need to talk with you about something and I'm feeling really vulnerable, or it feels really important to me and how you respond is going to be important to me. So would you be willing to just listen and take a breath, and then we can talk about it afterwards? Because I'm feeling very vulnerable, but I trust and love you, and it's that important that I talk with you about this. Right? Good. Are you going to say that to every person in your life? Oh, absolutely no. Right?
You know lawyers. She is closely attached to a lawyer, so you know lawyers, and you know they're not going to say that.
And there are times where that would not be appropriate.
Right.
So if you don't trust someone, if it was not safe for you to be vulnerable with them, then that's not your approach. You put that tool right back in the toolbox.
That's right.
And we take something else out.
That's right.
But
you have to, each tool has to be crafted by the individual who owns the toolbox, right?
Yes.
And it's different. Absolutely. Like how my tools are shaped and how I use them are different than how your tools are shaped and how you use them versus anybody listening to this. Is that an accurate way to put it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And that has to do with the skills that you have, the face that you have, the body that you have, right? If you are a big tall presence, you probably need to have slightly different skills to make sure that you're not coming off right. I mean, even just simple things like that. My
No,
face says a whole lot before I ever let a word out of my mouth. So I need to be aware
100%.
of that.
Yeah. And so we're back to awareness, which is
Yes.
step one, I think, in all of the things we're talking about.
At all times.
All times, awareness. Okay. So we started, yeah, we did kind of start talking about skill building, but so let's talk about the second thing. Let's talk about conflict and let's talk about reframing.
Yes. So one of the things that I think can be helpful, especially for those of us who are like big thinkers, maybe we overthink or overanalyze, reframing can be really helpful. One of the biggest reframes that I like to use in talking about conflict is thinking about conflict in terms of internal and external.
Yep.
So, especially for my conflict avoiders, you are not actually avoiding conflict. What you are more likely doing is avoiding external conflict. And you are swallowing it and taking it all internal, right? So if I feel really hurt by something that a friend, if a friend said, and I don't confront them about it, I'm choosing to avoid external conflict. But you know that business is going to be eating me up inside.
Oh yeah.
So if I've accepted the internal conflict, I've not avoided the conflict. So I think having that kind of reframe is helpful, especially again, if it's someone you trust.
Right.
Do you think that person that you trust would want you to be getting eaten up inside? No, they want you, hopefully, they want to be able to work through this process with you. They want to help you
Healthy
clean out the
dynamic,
wound. Yes.
healthy relationships, a healthy dynamic with your employer, a healthy dynamic with your coworkers, a healthy dynamic with your family gives you the opportunity to go down all the things we're talking about right now. And I am watching a beautiful dog have a stretch in the background
He's doing
and
like the
figure
cat
out,
stretch.
yeah,
Being a little kitty
we
cat.
all need a little cat stretch. We all need a little stretchy stretch. It's all good. So the internal thing, and I have talked about internal versus external just very briefly, and I'm so excited we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But the thing I find, and this is just my reaction to internal, but I think a lot of people do this even if they don't recognize that's what's happening, is that's when I'm on replay. That stuff is replaying in my head, like why
Yes.
didn't I solve it? Or why didn't I come up with a better solution in the moment? And I'm my subconscious is will not allow me to let it go. Right. I've just kind of got a broken record in there going, you know, that thing happened and I could have done this, or I could have done this, or I could have done this, but instead I did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no there there's no way to, as an individual, find, you're still not solving the problem, right? You're still on
Right.
repeat. But I know for me, it's I feel like I have I jokingly say I always have too many tabs open in my brain, but there's those tabs in your brain where you're going to put this and say, if this situation were to happen again, I want to have worked out. I mean, that's what mine is doing all the time is that, you know, gerbil is running her little legs off, trying to figure out, okay, if this confrontation happened again, I am going to use this tool based on this experience so that I don't leave with that internal sensation again.
Right.
So that's going into the skill building thing, right?
Yes. Because I think you're pointing out really well, right? This turmoil is happening inside me. So I have denied my friend the opportunity to clarify or to repair a rupture. That's
Yep.
therapy speak, right?
Yeah.
But secondly, I had a thought and then it just went away.
It'll come back.
Okay. It always does. Going back to the definition of boundaries is the distance at which I can love myself and you simultaneously. You can change the word love to respect if that fits the context better. What happens there is if I'm not confronting my friend and then it happens again, I'm actually damaging my friendship because now I am likely to either feel resentful of that friend.
Hey.
So the thing I was afraid of doing, right? We are reinforcing the feeling. I'm afraid of distrust. I'm afraid of breaking up this friendship. It's happening anyway because I'm feeling resentful of them. Or I'm feeling mad at myself. Ugh, I wish I had talked to them about it. And now it's building. Now they're going to be so upset that like I've let this build. So again, the distance at which I can love myself and the other person simultaneously, you got to be flexible and be able to adapt and see when those distances are getting out of whack. Being able, and so I think that moves us nicely into skill building, which is I can reframe this all day. Oh, this would be good for my relationship. I'm accepting this internal conflict when really it's an external. But at the end of the day, you are going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If avoiding conflict is your go-to, you've really honed that tool. It's going to be so hard to put it down.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that putting it down is wrong and picking up another tool.
So is this similar to, when you don't go to the gym for a long time, even though you know you should go to the gym, or your brain goes, gosh, I've got 20 minutes. I could go outside and take a walk, but I could just sit here and scroll on my phone instead too, right? It's the thing I'm using physical activity as a counterpoint because we all know we're supposed to move, right? We know our body will atrophy if we don't use the muscles involved. Isn't this a muscle as well?
Yes, absolutely. And you know how you build muscles? Every time we work them out, they tear.
Say
They
that
have
part
lots.
again. Say that part again, because it's
Every
not
time we
fun.
strengthen or work out a muscle, the way that it builds is we incur micro tears and the muscle rebuilds stronger. That is how relationships work too. They experience micro tears and we rebuild them stronger. Our skill set, we notice these micro tears. This tool didn't work for a while on this. And we rebuild stronger. This doesn't, so there's a, I'm going to go real therapy speak for a
Oh, good.
second.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
There is a school of thought called, lots of people have heard of like CBT. There's another one called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. And one of the pillars of that is tolerance for discomfort. That is what we're building here. Just like, it takes a while for you to be able to run long distances. I'm not going to be able to go to the gym after 2 years off and run 3 miles
Right.
and not die.
Yeah.
Maybe you will be able to.
I would die. It would happen. Yeah.
So what I have to do is push to the edge of my comfort. I need to go a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I need to not injure myself.
Yeah.
Right? I need to not
Yeah.
take on too much, but I need to get outside of my comfort zone and tolerate that, and then come back and push again. And each time it gets further, and then in a short period of time, I'm running 3 miles. Same with this. When I go to confront a friend, and this is a new skill for me, you're going to experience increased heart rate, sweating in weird places. Your talking being like mine, blah, 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 blah. Just absolute heat in your face, jittery. Your legs are going to be jumping. Whatever. That doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job or that what you're doing is wrong. It means this is a new skill. So to go back to the basketball analogy, because that's always where I end up. One of the things when I'm working with, especially when I was working with freshmen in high school who were taught, maybe coached by like their dad, maybe who thinks they know a lot, but a lot of what we were doing with those students, with those athletes, was saying, stop watching where the ball goes. The ball going in the basket is no longer your barometer for whether you did well or not. We are rebuilding the skill. I'm looking at your form first. Not whether it feels good, you're not there. Not whether it goes in, you're not there. It's going to feel uncomfortable, and you just got to get repetition in. Then we move to, does it go in? Then we start moving back. Then we add defense. So same thing with this skill. You're going to feel uncomfortable when you're confronting someone. You got to build the skills, and you've got to be able to stick in that moment despite the discomfort for long enough to see it through.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about being a parent. I'm a parent, you're a parent. I am an older parent than you, and I have raised mine. Mine are age of majority, which you people out there know what that means. Whoop whoop. Yours is not, and
No.
so we were chatting over coffee and just talking about kind of mom things, just mom things, and how nice it is that somebody helped me when my kids were younger and gave me some mom context. And I was sitting with you being the older mom doing the mom context. And you were really open and appreciative to having an older mom who lived through a little bit longer stuff look at you and go, or stop it, or whatever it takes. But you can't do that without trust.
Right.
And
Right.
you can't do that without respect. That's my hot word. I mean, I'm a Scorpio and I'm an 8 in the Enneagram, like respect.
Ooh, you
Yes,
fiery.
it's all happening. It's all happening in me. Respect is something that I know is going to be the thing that sets me off. So
Yeah.
when I have big reactions, I have to step back and say, are you just feeling disrespected? Is there really a problem here? That's a me thing that I had to learn over time. I love that you just talked about freshmen in high school because they only have a limited amount of life skills, right? And so then you talk about people leaving high school to college. They only have a limited amount of life skills to get them. I work, oh, there's the puppy. Hello, baby. It's okay. We're real on this show. It's all good.
Did you see how I looked and was
You
like,
did.
oh, I'm so
Yep,
sorry, you're recording?
that's right. Mom said don't do that, and I did it anyway. I've got law students that I work with who are in their early 20s and they're out of college, but they're still working on those life skills. Do we ever stop working on this stuff?
No. And such a good point. This is a skill. This is not a moral judgment or failing.
Right.
So if you are having a hard time with this, it's simply because you have not been given or taught the skills. And so we can work on them. It is not because you are dumb or a bad person or whatever. And respect is such a big piece of that. So maybe you had the skills, but then you had so many experiences where you were not respected. So the screwdriver didn't work, the wrench didn't work. And so all you had left was the hammer. So I think that the term skill building is really important to me because it means it comes from a growth mindset for those Carol Dweck
Love that
mindset
term.
nerds. It's moving away from a fixed mindset of I'm good at conflict, I'm bad at conflict, I hate confrontation. We're moving away from that fixed mindset into a growth mindset of, well, I don't have this skill yet. Oh, great. Now that I've had this experience, I can reflect and assess and say, this is an area where I could use some growth.
Yeah.
I could use some extra skill building. Let me go find someone who will help me with that. Trusted friend where I am expected to come to them with hard stuff, therapist, mentor, whomever.
Coach. I mean,
Coach.
yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
good stuff.
Older mom.
Yeah, your mom.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear from you. Um, we like those phone calls. Um,
Yes.
okay.
We need to talk to other humans that are not our children.
Or the dog. Sometimes our best audience.
So true. Oh, but the dog can't talk back. So that is the, well, mine does. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever, we all have. I hope that everyone has something in their life that gives them a little comfort without talking back like a pet or a
Or a rock.
garden or whatever. I am not here to tell you what that looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Caelie, I could do this with you all day.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you. I am sure everyone who's listening to this is like, have her come back. She's brilliant. I'm like, I know. I have really great people in my life. I'm telling you, trust me. So
But
with
you're so cool.
thank you for spending time with another lawyer.
No, thank you for having. I mean, obviously, I could talk all day about this too.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited that I got to talk with you.
Good. Thanks for being here. So, everybody out there, thanks for joining me today on Let's Talk About Conflict. If you have some things that you'd like to say about what we've been talking about, let us know. You can find us on Instagram or at website let's talk about conflict.com. Send us an email, send us a shout out. We might even see smoke signals. Wait, you're probably not supposed to say that anymore. Forgive me. I'm just saying, send us a message. We want to hear from you. And we want this podcast to reflect what the audience actually wants to listen to and learn about. So, with that, thanks again to the fabulous Caelie Dunn, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you. Bye.